Because bullying in today's world, and as we make advances in the world, through advances actually in technology, we are actually making advances in the way that kids bully. And today, bullying actually exists. Whoops, I should have gone over. You know what, let me back up. I forgot that we have webinar objectives today. Just really quick, just want to look at the objectives. We're going to distinguish the types of bullying in today's world, where to find anti-bully laws in our state, identifying disability harassment, highlight strategies and resources that can be used to address disability harassment, increase awareness of risks of the virtual world, identify resources and tactics to help protect our kids online, and also identify some resources to spot and stop bullying. Sorry for that little glitch. Back to the presentation. Bullying actually exists in two worlds. The physical world, which is the world we remember bullying from when we were kids, and also the virtual world, or our world online. Okay, the first thing we're going to discuss is bullying in the physical world. Bullying is an unwanted aggressive behavior, typically among school-age kids. Although, if you've been watching the news lately, I don't know if any of you had heard of the story about a woman, an anchor actually from Jacksonville, Florida. Her name's Jennifer Livingston, who was bullied recently about her weight by email. So, after I had written this presentation, I realized that bullying can really go beyond children. I think it still exists, even in the adult world. Bullying involves a perceived power imbalance and is often repeated. Both kids who are bullied and kids who bully others may have serious lasting problems. Bullying in the physical world, there are really three types of bullying, most significant. One is social bullying, which is hurting someone's reputation or relationship. It could be spreading rumors about somebody, embarrassing someone, or leaving someone out. It's so important for kids to feel like they fit in or to feel like they belong, so social bullying can actually be quite devastating. Physical bullying, a lot of times people think physical bullying is hurting someone or physically hurting them. But physical bullying can also be hurting someone's possessions, like throwing a backpack or breaking a pencil. You also have verbal bullying, which is saying or writing mean things. Despite the old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, name calling is a form of bullying and unfortunately does hurt. Bullying's been around for many years. However, we now have a lot of laws and or policies in every single state that mandates plans to educate schools, to promote awareness, to protect our children, and even to encourage advocacy. And I don't know how many of you are aware of the anti-bully laws in your state. Before I actually started putting this presentation together, I can honestly say that I wasn't aware of the laws in my state. But what I did find out as parents, well, first of all, we should be aware of the laws, because several years ago, the U.S. Department of Education, what they did was they reviewed the state laws and they identified key components in which school anti-bully policies should be based upon and formed. Additionally, local education associations work with our school districts on a regular basis to make sure that school policies are consistent with the laws and the policies as established in each state. Therefore, as parents, being familiar with the laws in your state is going to help you know your child's rights in school. A great resource, a great resource is, if you could see on the top of the screen, stopbullying.gov. It's a great resource to go to. If you actually go to this website and you click on policies and laws, then they bring up a map and you can actually click on your state. And when you click on your state, it will bring up the laws and the policies that are set forth in your state, which are very, very helpful. Now, bullying in children and youth with disabilities and special health needs. For kids with hemophilia, bullying can be a problem. Kids with special health needs, such as such as hemophilia, unfortunately, kids with disability are at a greater risk of being bullied. And kids with hemophilia, bullying can include things like maybe being made fun of for not participating in an activity when they're having a bleed, because the reason for not participating, such as an internal bleed, is not apparent or visible to others. A kid can be bullied maybe because they're not great at sports, so they're picked out or they're teased or they're targeted. Sometimes a kid might be bullied for coming to school with crutches one day and then the next day not needing crutches. Or a common one is possibly just think about kids who have ports and they have a little lump sticking out on their chest. They may be teased or made fun of for whatever the reason, whether it's actually a bleeding disorder or other disability. As I said before, children with special health needs often are at a greater risk at being bullied. Now, according to the Office for Civil Rights in the Department of Justice, bullying may be considered harassment when it is based on a student's race, color, religion, national origin, sex, or disability. Now, in 2000, a Dear Colleague letter was sent to school districts nationwide from the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights and of Special Education Rehabilitation Services that actually defines the term disability harassment. Bullying behavior can become disability harassment, which is actually prohibited under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Disability harassment can take many forms, and as we mentioned before, you have verbal bullying, social, physical. Disability harassment can occur in the physical world and it can occur in the virtual world. In 2012, another Dear Colleague letter from the Office of Civil Rights was issued to remind school districts of their responsibility under civil rights laws to prohibit discrimination and harassment on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and religion. Now, as parents, what can we do to help protect a child from bullying who has some type of a disability or a special need? First thing is really being aware of signs of bullying. Even if your child doesn't call it that, sometimes children might not recognize it as bullying. Children sometimes are not aware that they are being bullied, and we need to just be aware of signs. We need to be supportive. It's very important, very, very important to convey to your child that it is not their fault and that no one deserves to be bullied. Next, we need to speak with our child's school. Parents should contact the school staff each time their child informs them that he or she is being bullied. First, you want to talk to the child's teacher to see whether or not he or she can help. If the bullying or harassment, however, is severe, or if the teacher can't fix the problem, you then need to seek help from the principal. Be sure to explain what happened in detail, put your concerns in writing, preferably in the form of a letter, and ask for a prompt response. It's very important to keep written records of all conversations and communication with the school. If a problem persists, then I would suggest asking for an IEP or a Section 504 meeting. An IEP meeting or a Section 504 meeting will allow parents to explain what has been happening and will let the child study team review the child's IEP or 504 plan and make sure that the school is taking steps to stop the harassment. If a child needs counseling or other supportive services because of the harassment, a team will also assist with this. I've actually had some friends, what they have done and have found very helpful is they've actually contacted an advocate, and they've used an advocate. They've gone into meetings with an advocate, and they find that very helpful. A great resource that I have come across for parents on bullying with disabilities is the PACERS National Bully Prevention Center. Founded in 2006, PACERS National Bullying Prevention Center educates communities nationwide to address bullying through creative, relevant, and interactive resources. They have all sorts of videos. They have separate sites for teens and for kids. PACERS bully prevention resources are designed to benefit all students, and it includes additional information and support for students with disabilities. When you go on to the PACER website, and actually I'll have the website for you at the end of this presentation on one of my slides. If you go on to PACER's website and you click on resources and then you click on students with disabilities, there's an entire section actually dedicated to bullying and harassment of students with disabilities, including top 10 facts parents, educators, and students need to know. And as I mentioned before, as parents, you need to contact the school staff, every time. You need to contact them in writing, preferably in writing, each time the child informs you that he or she's been bullied. And one nice thing about the PACER Center is that on the Pacer Center website, parents can actually find template letters that serve as a guide for writing a letter to the child's school. The two letters that they actually have, one is student with an IEP notifying school about bullying, and the other one is student with a 504 notifying school about bullying. The Pacer Center's sample letters, they serve two purposes. The letters will alert school administration of bullying and your desire for interventions, and it can serve as your written record when referring to events. Other great advocacy resources on the Pacer Center actually is for teenagers. It has tips for teens, use your IEP meeting to learn how to advocate for yourself, as well as a really good student action plan, which is a self-advocacy resource that you can use with your kids to help them try to deal with some of the problems of bullying. Right now, that was bullying in the physical world, and Jane, if you wouldn't mind unmuting our guests, so that if there are any questions, that we can review any questions.
I can't channel 12, wait.
All right, so everybody's mics are now open, and if you're a question, you might want to mute your own phone just to help with some of that background noise. But don't forget to unmute to ask a question because we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I found out because everything was on Facebook saying...
Does anybody have a question they'd like to share? Or a question they'd like to ask, rather? Diane, we have one that's come into the question box about the 504 plan. You had mentioned that disability harassment is prohibited under Section 504.
Of the Rehabilitation Act.
712, they said?
Guys, we have a lot of background noise. I don't know if it would be possible to mute your own personal phone if you're not asking a question right now. Thank you. So the question was, does my child need to have a 504 plan
Well,
in order to qualify under the disability harassment that's
When was that?
It was about 7, I guess.
Do they need a 504 plan?
Did Daddy feel it?
I'm sorry, Jane, I'm having trouble.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm going to see if I can figure out. I might need to mute somebody here.
No, he never called me back. I'll just...
Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I'm sorry. Do you need me to repeat the question, Diane? Or?
Yes, please, please.
Okay. You had mentioned that the disability harassment is prohibited under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So does that mean my child has to have a 504 plan?
Well, if you're going to be working
to, file some sort of disability harassment, because I know a lot of the kids in our community may not have a 504 plan. Does that mean they're not eligible to file a harassment?
Right. Well, you know what? If you think about it, harassment is disability harassment. That's actually, believe it or not, a federal offense. Through the school system, I can't answer that accurately. I honestly could say that I'm not sure if you actually need to have the 504 plan. However, the school does, if the school is aware that your child has hemophilia, and again, this goes back to understanding what the policies are in your child's school, what the policies and the rules are also in your state. Regardless of having a 504 plan, if your child has a disability and if they're being bullied based on their disability, that's considered harassment. I think what the 504 plan does, it just gives you that added measure of protection, and that's the whole idea of when you have an IEP or a 504 plan, is to help protect our children who might need that. If you don't have that 504 plan, you can't. I don't think you can hide behind that plan. But I wouldn't allow that to deter a parent. If a parent doesn't have a 504 plan, if they don't have an IEP, I would not allow that to deter them from pursuing harassment if it is significant enough, if someone's being bullied because of hemophilia, because it's actually a federal offense. Most bullying falls under the umbrella of state laws and policies, except for when bullying is harassment. There, we're protected under federal laws. So again, it goes back to being very familiar with what are the laws in our state, and just being our own advocate. I hope I answered that okay for you.
That's great. Thank you. And one other question, you recommended notifying the school, every time there's a bullying incident.
Yes.
Do you recommend doing that even if it's a minor thing that you don't necessarily want the school to take action on? Maybe just as a way of documenting in case there's a pattern, but...
You know what, that's really on, that's an individual discretion. And that's up to each parent. I know as a parent, if it was something minor, I think as a parent, my first step would be to try to work with my child. And one of the first things, too, is to address the bullying. Sometimes when you address the bullying might stop. There are so many different variables that are involved. It's really up to the parent, up to the child, and it depends on what the bullying issue is. And I think parents have to work with their children. They need to work with their children and then just pay close attention. And if it happened again, I would definitely go to the school.
Thanks a lot, Danny.
Okay, and that's it for questions that have come into the question box. I don't know if anybody else wants to ask something or share anything now before Diane. All righty, then why don't we move forward, Diane?
Okay, great. One comment that I'm going to make regarding the last question that you had just asked, Jane, about whether or not you should report bullying every time it happens. It just made me think. In my own personal experiences, my kids actually had a problem with bullying several years ago. Ironically, not from a student, but from a bus driver. And in this particular situation, I had called the school, and we had called the school and asked the bus driver to drop my kid off first because it's about a 40-minute drive home because he was having a bleed. The bus driver did not take too kindly to that, so when my son got on the bus, she was very unkind to him, made him sit in the front and said, "Remember, you're injured, and so where's your bleed?" All kinds of really negative, unkind comments that she made. My son came home devastating, saying, "Mom, how do you prove that you have hemophilia?" In that situation, actually, yes, I did report it, but I actually found that it was a really good opportunity to sit down with my son and actually to help him deal with just ignorance and how people can be. Because not all people are going to be kind in this world. Not all people are going to be nice. So sometimes when bullying happens, as in this situation, I actually told my son, which he thought I was crazy. I said, I'm glad that this happened. I'm glad this has happened with me around so that we can discuss it and that I can teach you. So when bullying does happen for that first time, look at it as a blessing in disguise. Maybe use it as an opportunity to teach your child, and especially when it's bullying related to their hemophilia, because it can happen. And unfortunately, our first situation was a bus driver. Anyway, with that, let's go back to our presentation because we're going to go on to a topic which I find very interesting, which is bullying in the virtual world. Nowadays, kids not only socialize in the physical world, but they have lives in the virtual world. So this is where we will now turn our attention. Let me ask a couple questions I want you to think about. Does your child have a Facebook account? Does your child have an email account? Does your child have a cell phone? And if so, does that cell phone have texting capabilities or internet access? Does your child have access to a computer at home? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then they are all at risk of cyberbullying. Okay, kids, what do kids do online? Well, most of us, and probably most of our kids, do all sorts of things online. Kids socialize via email, instant messaging, text messages, over the web, over social networks. Many post and share pictures and videos, sometimes on Facebook or sometimes on YouTube. With most phones having cameras, it's become so simple to upload a photo or to take a video in an instant. Kids have profiles on social networks and are continually sharing lots of information with friends. Sharing everything has become really a part of their culture. And many kids actually create avatars to represent us online. An avatar is actually a virtual version of you, and I was just having a discussion with my son today to further educate me on avatars, and he was explaining to me apparently there's a very popular game called World of the Warcraft where avatars are used, and also Wii, when they play the game Wii, there are me avatars. So that's another thing that kids do online. These ways of socializing and communicating can be very fulfilling. However, they come with certain risks. And some of the risks are inappropriate conduct. The online world can feel anonymous. Kids sometimes forget that they're still accountable for their actions, and as a result, they may do or say something that they would not normally do or say in the physical world. Another risk is that you have is inappropriate contact. Some people online, unfortunately, have bad intentions, including bullies and, unfortunately, predators, hackers, and scammers. And finally, you have inappropriate content. You might be concerned that your kids might find something like violence or hate speech online or possibly pornography. It is so easy to stumble across inappropriate content. And I have actually done that myself with my daughter doing a report one time. She was in kindergarten, and we went to look up information on spiders. So I figured, let me go to YouTube and show her a video on, I think it was a tarantula. And I spelt YouTube incorrectly, and it brought me to a very inappropriate adult site, which I quickly had to take off that screen because that was definitely not spiders. So it's very, very easy to stumble across inappropriate content. It's actually not easy being a cyber parent and almost impossible to monitor our kids' behavior in the virtual world. And I have some really interesting statistics here. And they are that 58% of students admit to using internet unsafely, inappropriately, or illegally. And 55% of students report having given out personal information to someone they have only met online. It's important for us, in order to keep our kids safe online, it's important for us to talk to our kids about being online. We have to start with kids actually very young. It's a good idea to supervise them while they're online, possibly choosing and monitoring sites that they can visit. For my daughter, I've actually created a folder just for her, and I bookmark websites for her. You need to create an honest and an open environment. Talk to them all the time about the dangers of the internet. You have to teach them how to be safe online. Just as you would teach your child not to talk to strangers in the real world, you need to teach them how to avoid strangers in the cyber world. Being a cyber parent is very challenging. We don't have the childhood cyber life experiences to draw from to help us educate our children today. And many of our kids are even more cyber savvy than we are. One thing that's certain is that parents need to initiate conversation on a regular basis and communicate values. Communicate our values, and especially how they apply online. Communicating values will help our kids to make good choices and wise decisions when they're faced in a tricky situation. By the time kids are teenagers, I don't know how many of you have teenagers, but many are ready for more independence, of course, from their parents. They're starting to form their own values and reflecting those of their friends, but that doesn't mean that there's no point talking with them, because teens have access to the internet through their mobile devices, through phones, their computers, their friends' computers, and it's really hard to watch what they do. So it doesn't hurt to reinforce what I call good citizenship messages with your teens, along with actually 3 important messages that I think many of them need to hear. And one is that not all information is credible. Just because it's posted doesn't mean it's so. Once they post something, there's no taking it back. It's out there in the world. And no matter how impersonal it seems, like screen names, profiles, and avatars, they belong to people with real feelings, and we have to treat them the way that you would like to. Now, again, I just felt like I needed to go over that, talking to your kids about being online, just because safety is such an important issue. But now, what happens when bullying does occur online? Well, again, the advice is talk to your kids. Ask them to tell you if an online message makes them feel threatened or hurt. And the same goes for images. Keep an open channel of communication with your child, and hopefully he or she will come to you. Tell your kids that they cannot hide behind the words they type or the images they post. None of us wants to think that our kids might be bullying other kids, but still, remind your kids that hurtful messages can make the sender look bad and sometimes even bring punishment from authorities. Cyberbullying. Okay, cyberbullying is the use of the internet, cell phone, other technologies to send or post text or images intended to hurt or embarrass another person. And actually, recent research shows that cyberbullying is the online safety issues that kids are the most worried about. According to cyber law experts, and I just found this amazing, 40% of high school students have been cyberbullied while in high school, and that figure is nearly doubled among middle school kids. And what I've just recently found out is that cyberbullying is so common that many high school kids don't even think of the behavior as bullying. They have a different term. They refer to the behavior as cyber drama, because it is such a natural part of their life. So what do we do if your child has a problem with being bullied? If a kid has a problem with bullying, number one is don't react to the bully. Again, encourage your kids to talk with you. Sometimes you may need to raise the topic of cyberbullying with your children. I find it's actually very helpful to visit. There's so many resources out there on the web. If you can visit different websites with them on bullying and watch videos together, the website On Guard Online has phenomenal videos. It even has one called How to Talk to Your Kids, and then it has other self-help videos for your kids. Secondly, save the evidence. That's part of keeping written records. It's so important to save any evidence, copying those making a photocopy of any inappropriate emails or anything that you can. Block the bully online from wherever the bullying is occurring. You can actually also report abuse to the website where it takes place. Additionally, have any bogus profiles taken down. If someone puts a bogus profile up of your child, have it taken down immediately. And another thing is teach your kids never to share their passwords. I mean, I know this is something that we say all the time, teach your kids never to share their passwords or their security questions, but kids constantly access each other's accounts and make changes to their accounts all the time. A shared password is really an open door to cyberbullying or inappropriate activity. Okay, now, question for you. Have you ever thought that maybe your child could be the one who does the cyberbullying? Kids who typically would never be considered a bully are actually being accused of cyberbullying just by sending a rude email message or maybe making a silly nonsense remark on our Facebook. So we actually have to teach our kids how to behave online. We have to teach them to share with care and to interact with tact. Our kids' online actions have real-world consequences. Many kids don't think about the consequences in advance, so we need to teach them to stop and think before you click. You know the old saying that reminds you to put your seatbelt on before you leave your house is click it or tick it. Well, with my kids, I just post right on the computer, stop and think before you click. It's very important for them to remember that. What you post could have bigger audience than you think, especially Facebook. You have no idea who's accessing your profile information or viewing your photos. Even using privacy settings, it's impossible to control who sees your network profile. And once you post information online, you cannot take it back. Your post can live somewhere else permanently. And also, you need to get someone's okay before sharing photos or videos, because it can be unsafe to send or post photos or videos without getting permission from people. Interact with tact. Politeness counts. Emphasize with your kids good manners. A lot of times emails can be misunderstood. Secondly, don't impersonate. Don't create sites, pages, or posts that seem to come from someone else. It's wrong. It's also illegal. And kids regularly, innocently access each other's email accounts and Facebook accounts. My son actually has a Facebook account, which he really doesn't post or make notes to, but he has it. And a friend of his, a girl, who's not a girlfriend but a friend, we're going to just call her Mary. I was on my son's Facebook page, and I noticed my son's status, who by the way is only 14, indicated that he was married to Mary. And I said to him, why are you considered married? Is she your girlfriend? And he said, no, she just did that. So I immediately took that post down that he was, and I automatically indicated that he's not married. And then the next day I went on to his Facebook account again, and I noticed that once again it indicated that he was married. So I said to him, I said, did you go back and indicate that you were married? And he said no. Apparently the girl went back on and she did it. And I said, well, how did she do that? Well, apparently she has his password. So I had to explain to him, it's illegal. It's illegal to do that, but it's so innocent. Kids innocently access each other's email accounts and Facebook accounts all the time. They're just very open, honest, and trustworthy. But it's wrong. Also, we have to teach our kids to speak up. If they see anything that's wrong or inappropriate, they need to trust. They need to trust an adult and talk to an adult. And we need to teach our children how to stand, not to stand for, or I should say, don't stand for bullying, whether it's online or offline. We need to increase awareness and teach our kids to assert their rights and teach them how to be an advocate against bullying. Some resources that I have found very helpful listed on the screen are NetSmarts and Safe Kids, Connect Safely, Wire Safely, Cyberbullying, Facebook. The two big ones, though, the On Guard Online, that is a great resource. It has amazing videos to visit. And as a matter of fact, I know Jane had sent everyone an email prior to the webinar with a PDF of a booklet called Heads Up, Stop, Think, Connect. It was put out by On Guard Online, which is actually through the Federal Trade Commission. It's a great booklet to go through with your kids, and the videos are also very helpful. And then the other one is Pacers National Bully Prevention Center. That particular resource, like I said, has a lot of information to deal with disabilities, as well as regular bullying. And also I wanted to mention, which I feel is very important, is Facebook. As I was preparing this presentation, I actually interviewed a prosecutor, a detective from the prosecutor's office who actually specializes in cyber crimes or computer crimes, and he told me that Facebook tends to be the bully's tool of choice. And that's what parents need to monitor the most. And what I wanted to share with you today is, if you didn't know, is that Facebook actually has an advisory board from leading internet safety organizations such as ChildNet International, Connect Safety, the Family Online Safety Institute, the National Network to End Domestic Violence, and Wired Safety. And if you go on to facebook.com/safety, it's a chock full of information for parents for kids who have a Facebook account, I think it's a must for parents to visit that source of information. And in conclusion, I just wanted to say that it's really not up to one person to end bullying, and it's never the responsibility of the child, to change what is happening to them. No one deserves to be bullied. All people should be treated with dignity and respect no matter what. Everyone has a responsibility and a role to play as schools, as parents, as students, and a community to work together for positive change. I want to thank everybody for attending and ask Jane if she'd like to open up the conversation panel now to maybe address any questions or concerns, or if they can add anything regarding cyberbullying.
The president's job is to take this country right now, which is in such doubt about its own future, and say, look, we can go to a better place.
All right, so everybody's mics are open, and I'll just remind you, if you don't want to speak up, you might want to mute your own telephone. Really encourage people to ask a question or maybe share any experience they have within their own family. All right, I don't see any questions that come into the box. Maybe we'll wrap here a little early. Oh, sorry, there is one question.
There's somebody that emailed you about the truck.
I'm sorry? There is a question, is there a certain age recommended for kids to have a Facebook account?
That's funny because I actually asked the federal prosecutor, and you know what, he really felt, and again, this was his advice, there is no guidelines, but he felt that a lot of parents are giving kids too young too much access to the internet. He thinks kids are having phones with internet access much too early, Facebook's accounts. He really recommended that young children, school-age children, not to have Facebook accounts, just because there is so much trouble that you can get into. But again, I mean, I know families that actually have Facebook accounts, and that suggestion comes from, like I said, a prosecutor, because of the issues that he sees coming across his desk with cyberbullying. He recommends not only no Facebook, but they recommend, these phones with internet access. Unfettered access is not a good thing for young children. He actually suggested that parents should rule with, what did he say, with a heart and an iron fist.
I think you raised a good point with the phones, with internet connection, is that you can have all the safeguards in the world, in place in your own house. But, our kids live in this very large world, and there are kids on the school bus who have internet and Wi-Fi on their phones.
Yes,
certainly at school, so just having those parental controls and those precautions in place at home, unfortunately, isn't enough anymore, because they have access to it. And if they don't have access to actually, seeing the material, it's the stuff that's being talked about on the bus. So I think it really points to how important it is to have continual conversations with your kids about what they might see and hear, and almost anticipate that they're probably hearing about it at a younger age than you might think they are.
Yes.
Sad to say, but that's reality today.
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't necessarily, I'm not sure the answer to this question, but I thought that that Facebook, not that everybody adheres by it, but that Facebook had a minimum age.
It did.
Certainly you can say whatever. So, I mean, is that maybe a rule of thumb? Whatever age they think is appropriate is it 13?
Yeah, 13. They gave a minimum age. They did. And like I said, nobody pays attention to the minimum age. There is Facebook, and actually, if you go onto Facebook.com/safety, if you are going to allow your child to have a Facebook account, I would suggest just knowing as much as you possibly can, especially how to set safety, how to set the safety settings, and having your kids limit who their friends are, because you technically can have a Facebook account and have just 5 friends on there. So it's hard to say. Yes, there's a recommended age, but this federal investigator that I did meet with, he just said that it is the bullying tool of choice, and that they just see so many problems related to Facebook. So it's just it's really up to the parents. How well can you monitor your kids? It's not an easy job. Being a cyber parent is not an easy job.
And do we have any more questions or anything anybody would like to share from personal experience? I know on some of the parenting, speaking of Facebook, some of the hemophilia parenting groups, bullying is definitely a topic that comes up. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but it's definitely something that the parents are talking about. So I know that webinars are wonderful for reaching a large audience of us who live all over the place, but it is a little different than sitting together in a rap session, and having that environment to share. But would certainly like to encourage just continued discussions about it. I think it's such an important topic. It's something that HFA will be paying attention to throughout the month of October and beyond. If you, hopefully you're friends with us on Facebook, our communications manager, Rich Pazillo, is putting up some regular posts this month specifically geared towards bullying, and Diane wrote a great article in the upcoming issue of Dateline addressing bullying. So although this is the month where we're really keen in on awareness, it's obviously something that we should be thinking about and talking to our kids about throughout the year. I want to thank you, Diane. A great presentation. For some of you who have a local Dads in Action group who are getting together, for local events, we're hoping that Diane might be able to visit with some of you in person, because she did another presentation that incorporates some of these videos that she referenced, and they're pretty powerful, and I think are a great tool to use to sit and show your children. We don't always know exactly what to say, and so we should be accessing the tools that help us deliver the messages. Certainly be sitting with your children when you're watching them, so that you can, it might get some conversation starters going. But Diane hopefully will be making some visits out to the local communities on behalf of Dads in Action to kind of elaborate on the bullying topic. And I want to thank all of you for participating tonight. I know that we have busy days. It might be 5 o'clock for those of you on the West Coast and 8 o'clock on the East Coast. Not always a desirable time, so we really acknowledge and appreciate that you took the time to be with us tonight. Diane mentioned that I sent a few handouts earlier in the day. And there is one more handout that we did not have in PDF form. It's called Living Life Online, put out by the Federal Trade Commission. And I'd be happy to send you a copy if you did not receive what we sent earlier, or if you're interested in this third handout, please email us at hfaprograms@hemophiliafed.org. Send us your name and address, and we'll send you some hard copies. Or you could also see this third handout on FTC, that's Federal Trade Commission, so ftc.gov/livinglifeonline. And Diane, if you could just advance one more slide, I wanted to skip to another topic and just make sure that you all know about HFA's new, maybe back once, there it is, our new mobile app called Get in Gear, which will track your fitness activities, and it helps raise awareness about bleeding disorders, because we have over 6,000 downloads, which is more than we originally projected, which I really think speaks to the quality of the app. We've gotten some fantastic feedback. Very popular, and it's a free download available on both iPhone and Android. So we would encourage you to check that out. You can get more info at www.getingearapp.com. And then I think the last slide, Diane, is just to let you know about our next webinar. Will be Tuesday, December 11th, focusing on inhibitors. The conversation, quite honestly, will be a little more geared towards the families who are living with the challenges of active inhibitors. But if you just want to, learn a little bit more about, even if you don't have an inhibitor, you want to learn a little bit more about it, I'd encourage you to join us. And I think that is it for tonight. Thank you again to Diane and to all of you, and we hope you have a good evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.